Your male cat has been sending you signals every single day that most owners misread their entire lives. Not just signals about his mood or his hunger, signals about his survival, his loyalty, and something researchers only confirmed in recent decades, that his specific personality, his boldness, his warmth, the particular way he chose you, was encoded in his genes before he ever opened his eyes. Most people think they understand their male cat. What they understand is the surface. What's underneath is a biological world most owners never get close enough to see. And missing it isn't just missing something interesting. For at least one thing on this list, missing it could cost him his life within 24 hours. Most owners assume a male cat is essentially the same as a female, just louder, maybe more dramatic, possibly a little harder to manage. That assumption follows male cats into millions of homes every year. But male cat biology is genuinely, measurably different in ways that change how he bonds, how he communicates, how he ages, and what he actually needs from you to thrive. The behaviors you've been writing off as quirks, as random cat weirdness, as just his personality, have real mechanisms behind them. Hormonal, neurological, evolutionary mechanisms that once you understand them, you cannot unsee. And there's one thing we'll come back to near the end of this video. Something about where his personality really comes from that most owners find genuinely stops them in place. Once you understand it, the way he looks at you carries an entirely different weight. We'll get there. But first, let's start with something that sounds almost too strange to believe. 1. Your male cat has a dominant paw, and science says it's almost certainly his left. Here's something most people have never thought to notice about their male cat. He has a preferred paw. Not just loosely, not just a general tendency. He has a genuine, measurable, neurologically rooted preference for using his left paw in precise, demanding tasks. And the reason it's his left, specifically his left, is not random at all. Researchers at Queen's University Belfast spent years studying paw preference across hundreds of cats, and what they found drew a clean, consistent line between sexes. Female cats showed a strong preference for their right paw. Male cats showed an overwhelming preference for their left. What makes this remarkable isn't just the gender split, it's the reason behind it. Paw preference in cats is driven by brain lateralization, the same phenomenon that makes most humans right-handed. The right hemisphere of the brain, which controls the left side of the body, is more dominant in males, and that hemisphere is particularly specialized for spatial reasoning, emotional reactivity, and territorial processing. The exact cognitive tools a male cat depends on to navigate his world. To your cat, his left paw isn't just the one he reaches with first. It's the one his brain trusts in moments that require precision and care. Think about that for a second. Every time he's carefully fishing a treat out of a puzzle feeder, every time he gently paws at your hand in the early morning before you've opened your eyes, he's using his neurologically dominant side. Most owners go their entire lives with a male cat and never once test this. Never once look for the pattern that's been there all along. Here's something easy to try today. Put a small treat inside a narrow container, something he has to reach into carefully, and watch which paw he uses 3, 4, 5 times in a row. You'll almost certainly see the same paw appearing again and again. And what you're actually watching isn't a cute party trick. You're watching his brain hemispheres at work. The cat you thought you knew just got more interesting. But stay with me, because the next one is the kind of thing that makes you rethink something you've probably taken for granted your entire life as a cat owner. 2. The orange cat in your life is almost certainly male, and the reason is written into his chromosomes. If you've ever noticed that ginger cats seem disproportionately male, your instinct is completely right. Around 80% of orange cats are male, and this isn't a coincidence or a cultural pattern. It's basic genetics, and it plays out the same way every single time. The gene that produces orange pigmentation in cats sits on the X chromosome. Males carry one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. To be orange, a male only needs his single X chromosome to carry the orange gene. One copy, and the expression is complete. Females carry two X chromosomes. For a female to be fully orange, both of her X chromosomes need to carry that gene simultaneously. That requires inheriting it from both parents at the same time, a statistically much rarer event, which is exactly why true orange female cats are considered a genuine genetic rarity, often sought out by breed enthusiasts specifically because of how unusual they are. Here's what makes this even more fascinating. When a female inherits the orange gene on only one of her two X chromosomes, she doesn't turn fully orange. Instead, that partial expression creates something else entirely. The patchy, multicolored coat we call calico or tortoiseshell, which is why you've almost certainly never met a male calico cat. It's biologically near impossible. Male calicos do exist, but only in cases where a rare chromosomal anomaly results in an extra X chromosome, a condition called Klinefelter syndrome, which makes them sterile and extraordinarily uncommon. So the orange cat sitting across from you right now is carrying visible genetic evidence of his sex, right there in the color of his fur. Most owners look at their ginger cat and see personality, see warmth, see a specific kind of energy they love. What they're also seeing, without realizing it, is genetics made visible. Color as biology. His coat as a direct expression of the chromosomal architecture that makes him, him. In a moment, I'm going to show you something that changes how you read the physical structure of your male cat's face, and what that structure was actually built to survive. But first, there's a behavioral pattern that most owners misread so completely for so many years that it quietly costs them something they can never recover. 3. The broad face and full cheeks you admire on your unneutered male cat aren't extra weight. They're biological armor, and they tell you something profound about the life he was designed to survive. If you've ever looked at the wide, jowly face of an intact male cat and assumed he was carrying a little extra weight around the cheeks, here's the thing. You've been misreading the signal entirely. Those prominent cheekbones, that thickened jawline, the density of the facial structure you notice when you look at him head-on, they are a secondary sexual characteristic driven directly by testosterone. The skin and underlying tissue in that area thickens dramatically under the influence of male hormones, creating a dense, padded biological layer that serves one very specific purpose. In territorial confrontations between intact males, whether in the wild or in any outdoor environment where competing males encounter each other, the throat, neck, and facial region are the primary targets. A direct bite to the throat or eye area from another male can be fatal. Stud jowls are the body's evolved answer to that reality. They add a protective layer of dense tissue over exactly those vulnerable areas. A natural face shield that emerged through thousands of years of competitive male survival. Not aesthetics, armor. After neutering, as testosterone levels gradually decline, these jowls soften and diminish. The face narrows. The cheeks lose their density. What you're witnessing in that physical change is the body quietly withdrawing a tool it no longer needs. And that shift tells you something about how profoundly hormones shape not just behavior, but the physical structure of your male cat's body. Most owners look at a broad-faced male cat and see character. They're right, but they're only seeing half of what's there. The other half is a survival history, written in tissue, and this connects to a story I want you to keep with you as we go through the rest of this video. There's a cat named Cosmo, a large, broad-faced orange male who spent the first 2 years of his life being described by his owner, a woman named Sarah, as fine. He ate, he slept, he paced at night. He occasionally marked near the front door. Sarah knew it wasn't ideal, but she told herself this was just male cat behavior. Normal, manageable, part of who he was. She didn't know what she didn't know, and she almost found out the worst way possible. We'll come back to Cosmo. But right now, I want to get to something important. Something that I think is one of the most quietly misunderstood things about living with a male cat. And hey, If this video is already changing the way you see your cat, hit subscribe. Every person who subscribes helps this information reach an owner who might need it before it's too late for their cat. It genuinely matters. Now, let's keep going. 4. Male cats mature more slowly than females, and that eternal kitten quality you love isn't a personality flaw. It's biology doing exactly what it's supposed to do. One of the most beloved and most persistently misunderstood qualities of male cats is the way they seem to stay kittens long after they should have settled down. The wild zoomies at 3 a.m., the way a 5-year-old male cat still attacks a toy mouse with the same unhinged intensity as a 4-month-old. The goofiness, the complete absence of self-consciousness, the total joyful commitment to doing something ridiculous. Most owners smile at it without ever realizing it has a concrete biological explanation, and that they've been misreading what it means. Female cats mature faster across the board, emotionally, behaviorally, neurologically. After their first heat cycle, or first litter, most females shift noticeably. They become more observant, more measured, often more independent. The sharpest edges of their playfulness soften. Male cats, particularly those neutered early, don't go through that same hormonal transition. Their developmental timeline stretches out. They stay in a prolonged juvenile phase, physically and behaviorally, well into what would be considered full adulthood in a female. A 2018 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science found that play behavior in male cats remained significantly elevated throughout adult life compared to females, and that this wasn't breed-specific or environment-specific. It was a consistent, documented pattern tied to the slower hormonal maturation of males, especially in neutered individuals. To your cat, play isn't entertainment the way it might be for you. Play is how he practices and maintains every survival skill he has: hunting sequences, ambush timing, tracking moving targets, testing his own reflexes and reaction speed. The fact that he never fully grows out of it isn't immaturity. It's a male nervous system staying sharp through the only mechanism it knows how to use. What most owners experience as a slightly chaotic, clumsy, endearingly ridiculous companion is actually a cat whose brain is actively maintaining itself for his entire life. Here's the part most owners miss, and this is where the loss framing matters. That extended playfulness is an invitation. It's a sustained, lifelong invitation to bond with him through movement and shared energy. Every time you've been too tired to pull out the wand toy, every time you watched him fling himself sideways at a piece of crinkled paper and laughed from across the room instead of getting on the floor with him, those were moments of connection he was actively offering you. Most owners never fully accept that invitation until the cat is old and the energy is gone and the moments are behind them. Don't be that owner. Stay with me, because what comes next is the one I need you to hear before anything else. This is the part of the video that, if you walk away from nothing else, I want you to walk away remembering. 5. Your male cat's anatomy contains a structural vulnerability that can kill him in under 48 hours, and the early warning signs look almost exactly like nothing. Here's what nobody tells you clearly enough when you bring a male cat home. His urethra, the tube that carries urine out of his body, is roughly 3 times longer and significantly narrower than a female cat's. In practical terms, this means the margin between normal urinary function and a complete, life-threatening obstruction is extremely small, and the conditions that cause that obstruction are common, quiet, and easy to miss until they're not. Feline lower urinary tract disease is the most serious health concern in male cats, and urethral obstruction is its most dangerous expression. When crystals, inflammatory debris, or mucus accumulates and blocks that narrow passage, urine backs up rapidly. The kidneys come under pressure within hours. Without emergency veterinary care, a complete blockage is fatal, typically within 24 to 48 hours. Not days, hours. The thing that makes this so dangerous is how invisible the early stages look. They don't look like an emergency. They look like a cat who's being picky about his litter box. Watch for a male cat who makes repeated trips to the litter box but produces very little or nothing at all. A male cat who strains visibly and vocalizes during the attempt. Even a quiet, almost casual cry that you might easily mistake for effort. A male who licks his lower abdomen or genital area more than usual, or who suddenly becomes lethargic and withdrawn in a way that doesn't match his normal energy. If you observe any combination of those signs, the window for action is narrow. Don't monitor him overnight. Don't adjust his diet and weight. This is an emergency, and your vet needs to know immediately. Prevention is achievable, and it begins with one simple principle. Hydration is the most powerful protective factor you have access to. A water fountain, wet food as the primary component of his diet, multiple water sources placed in different rooms. These aren't luxuries. They're functional health interventions. A 2020 study from the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine found that male cats fed primarily wet food had a 46% lower incidence of urethral obstruction compared to those maintained primarily on dry food. Nearly half the risk removed through a single dietary decision. Keep his litter box scrupulously clean and placed in a quiet, accessible location, because a cat who avoids his litter box urinates less frequently, and infrequent urination allows crystals to concentrate and accumulate. Choose food formulated for urinary tract health. Make these things automatic, not reactive. Most owners learn this information after a crisis. Most owners didn't know what they were looking for until they were already sitting in an emergency clinic at 2 in the morning. Don't be that owner. This is where Cosmo's story almost ended. At 3 years old, Sarah noticed him making trip after trip to the litter box and producing almost nothing. She waited a day because she thought he was just being fussy, just particular about cleanliness. By the time she brought him to the emergency vet, his kidneys were already under significant stress. The veterinarian told her that another 12 hours, maybe less, and the outcome would have been different. Cosmo survived. Not every cat does, but here's the part of Cosmo's story that Sarah talks about differently now. What happened after he recovered? Because what she started noticing in the weeks and months that followed is the reason we're here at the end of this video, and it connects to the thing I told you I was saving. 6. Your male cat's personality was not shaped by his environment alone. It was written into his DNA before he was born, by a father he may never have met. Remember earlier when I said there was something near the end of this video that most owners find genuinely stops them? This is it. You've probably thought about where your cat's personality comes from. Maybe you've credited his early environment, his socialization, the patience you've put into building his sense of safety. Those things matter. But research on behavioral genetics in cats has revealed something that fundamentally reshapes the picture. A cat's temperament, specifically his boldness, his willingness to approach humans, his sociability, the degree to which he actively seeks connection, carries a strong, documented genetic component, and it comes predominantly from the father. Research led by behavioral geneticist Sandra McCune and later expanded in studies published across multiple peer-reviewed animal behavior journals found that kittens born to a friendly, bold, human socialized father were significantly more likely to be approachable and social themselves, regardless of how much early contact they had with humans during the critical socialization window. Kittens born to unfriendly or fearful fathers were consistently shyer and more reactive, even when raised in environments with high, consistent human interaction. The socialization window mattered, but the genetic foundation mattered more. The father doesn't need to be present. He doesn't need to have played any role in raising the kittens. His behavioral predispositions are encoded at the genetic level and passed forward before birth. The specific way your male cat decides to walk toward you when you sit down on the floor, the moment, maybe it came slowly, maybe it took years, when he finally fully trusted you, the particular boldness with which he navigates his world, or the quiet sensitivity that makes him attuned to your moods in ways that sometimes catch you off guard. That wasn't random. That was written into him by a father who himself inherited it from his. Think about that for a second. Every behavioral choice your cat has ever made about you, every time he chose your lap over the empty chair, every time he stayed when he could have walked away, every time he pressed his head into your hand in a moment of complete vulnerability, That was the expression of a genetic lineage you can trace back through generations. His personality is not an accident. It is an inheritance. And he has been expressing it for you consistently since the day he arrived. After Cosmo recovered, Sarah started paying attention differently. She began noticing the specific moments he chose to be near her, not when he was hungry or restless, but when he was calm and still, and came anyway. She realized that what she had spent 2 years calling just his personality was actually consistent in ways she had never taken the time to map. He had always shown her who he was. He had always been reaching toward her. She just hadn't known how to see it for what it was. Your male cat's body was built for survival in a world that for him no longer fully exists. His instincts were calibrated for competition and territory and distances that domestic life has compressed into the space of your apartment. His anatomy carries a vulnerability that requires your active attention to protect. His face tells the story of fights he was built to survive. His coat color is a visible expression of his chromosomes. His paw preference reflects hemispheric specialization most people never think to observe. But underneath all of it, underneath the territorial pacing in the narrow anatomy and the leftward paw and the 3 a.m. zoomies, is a personality that was chosen for him before he was born, passed down through a father he may never have seen, and that he has been living out for you every single day. The question was never whether your male cat has been trying to show you who he is. The question is whether you've been paying close enough attention to see it.